So, friends, we have to consider certain questions. The answer to that questions, like what is medico-legal aspect? Actually speaking, there is nothing like medico-legal aspects. These are just plain legal aspects which are applied to medical field. But we, as a doctors, we have habit of coining new terms. Like we have say proctologist, we have endoscopist. Similarly, we have coined this term medico-legal aspects. Otherwise, it is just a legal aspects which is applied to medical field. Have we ever heard about say architect or legal aspect, or political legal aspect, or engineer or legal aspect? We are just coining such terms. So we have to keep this thing in mind that these are just the legal implications of medical practice. Now, there is no law. So what to do or what to follow when the law is absent? There is no law for fertility preservation, for ART, for surrogacy. Unfortunately, the bill for ART and surrogacy was also not passed in this session of the Parliament. So now what to do? One thing is very clear, that we are living in a free country. The thing which is not specifically prohibited is allowed. Saying that, I also say that when in the absence of law, what you have to follow? The ICMR guidelines, standard practice protocol, other relevant laws which can interfere with your decisions, and the ethics. These four things we have to consider when the law is absent in any field. And what are the problems? Let us see, and what problems we can anticipate with in fertility preservation practice. Let us start with the definition of the fertility preservation. It says fertility preservation is the process of saving the eggs and sperms and the embryos or reproductive tissue, so that the person can use them to have biological children in future. Now, the purpose which I have got from the various references, the purpose for fertility preservation can be anything. It can be when there is a possibility of exposing to toxic chemicals, or for the endometriosis cases, or uterine fibroid cases, or treatment of cancer, autoimmune diseases, or genetic diseases. And last but not the least, they have said delay having children. Now, we see all these factors, the other indications which they have mentioned, are having some medical implications, but to have delay having children. Now, while considering this, we also have to put ethics before our consideration or our concern. Just for delaying the children, or just we have that fertility preservation procedures, is it advisable to say somebody to delay having children? Will the additional age will not put any risk during the pregnancy? First thing. Second thing, the late pregnancy is having its own social problems. Forget the medical. And that is true even for ART. And that is why there is a cutoff in the new bill which was put, that after 50 years, this ART procedures will not be available to the couple. So we have to have some cutoff in our mind, because we may do all this, but at least we should put ethics before giving some idea to the patient. Now, fertility preservation options. If we think about the options, there can be gonadal shielding, there can be ovarian transposition, the sperm cryopreservation, oocyte cryopreservation, and embryo cryopreservation. Now, as far as gonadal shielding is concerned, that is just a standard practice for doing any radiotherapy or any kind of radiation. If the patient has to undergo, the gonads needs to be shielded. So that is what is a matter of standard practice, and we are not much concerned about medical legal issues arising out of that particular procedure. For ovarian transposition, it has a little importance, but it is just like any other surgery. For any other surgery, whatever medical legal precautions you have to keep, you have to take consent, you have to do the standard procedure, it has to be the established procedure, you have to do pre-operative investigations, you have to do all the pre-anesthetic checkup, you have to give appropriate anesthesia, the timing should be proper, selection of the patient should be proper. So it is just like any other surgery. So that also is not much of a concern. When the thing comes to sperm cryopreservation, oocyte cryopreservation, or embryo cryopreservation, the real problem starts. Now, in the absence of law, as I told you, the most recent guidelines of any government recognized body or a bigger body will be considered valid in deciding cases in the court of a civil type. Now we have ICMR guidelines. So as per ICMR guideline, the ART treatment can be offered after 21 years of age or at least after the age of marriage. That is what is mentioned in the new bill which was put before the parliament. While fertility preservation may require to be done before that age limit in the children also. Now, contravention of this clause is made punishable in the bill as well as in 2010 guidelines. Now, can we offer this treatment to a children? That means we must have some provision that the fertility preservation is different from ART. If such type of wordings are not there in the draft bill, then it will create a problem or a big problem. I will give you a simple example. Say when MTP Act was made in 1970, there was no means to diagnose the condition of the intrauterine fetus. It was purely meant for the unwanted child. But today, in 2020, when we want to terminate pregnancy beyond 20 weeks, that act prevents us because it does not say that the pregnancy can be terminated in case of anomalies which is detected little late, or it is not possible to diagnose certain anomalies before 20 weeks, the pregnancy can be terminated because the time gap between 1970 and 2020 is very wide. At present, we have both these things available. ART techniques are also there with us. Fertility preservation is also there with us. Still, we have not suggested this thing to the legal luminaries who have drafted the ART bill, that this bill shall not affect the procedures related to fertility preservation. That should have been added, and this may cause certain restriction on our fertility preservation if not done properly. So this is one medico-legal concern which we have to keep in our mind. Consent. Now, when consent is concerned, we have to do everything with the consent, and it always poses a great medico-legal risk if it is not taken. Now, whose consent we should take? If the person is less than 18 years of age, we have to take consent of the guardian. We know that. Now, who is the guardian? That is the second question. A mother is a guardian, father is a guardian, or both? The answer to that question is any of the person is a legal guardian. So you can take either mother sign or father sign, or both of them can sign the consent on behalf of their child. But can guardian refuse the fertility preservation treatment? And the second question is, what if the child refuses and guardian agrees, or vice versa? The child agrees and the guardian refuses. The 17-year-old boy or a girl, he has the knowledge about medicine or the treatment. Now, if she refuses to undergo the treatment, or she wants to do this treatment and parents are not agreeing, what to do in certain situations? That type of problems we have not faced in fertility preservation, or I'm not knowing about that. But as far as the MTP is concerned, such problems have faced by the doctors where the child wanted to continue with the pregnancy and parents wanted to terminate the pregnancy when the child was less than 18 years age. In such cases, you have to seek the help of the court. You have to go to the court. Court will decide ultimately what should be done with that particular patient. Please do not take decision on anybody's favor or favoring your ideas, the person who is favoring your idea. Do not take decision on that. When there is a dispute between child and the guardian, you have to go to the court. So, but when it comes to life-saving procedure, suppose a child requires, say, some life-saving procedure, the guardian cannot refuse that. Guardian is there to give consent in the best interest of the child. Now, best interest is usually considered by law as the best interest, as in to save the life of the person. The fertility preservation, is it a best interest? That is why we have to go to the court, because it is a confusing thing. Because fertility preservation, is it a fundamental right? We don't know. We are discussing that question also in a later while. Now, how long should we preserve the gametes? That also is very much important, because whatever we have at present to guide our fertility preservation is ICMR guideline. Now, ICMR guideline says, and ART bill also says, the gamete of a donor or embryo shall be stored for a period of not more than 5 years, that is in 2010, or 10 years, that is in 2020. Now, the person has given a sperm or oocyte and the person dies. Now, if that person, he or she is not married, what to do with the gamete, who is the owner of that gamete, and what can be done. And we have faced this type of problem at one of the centers where we are taking care of. Can his or her parent ask for it, for them to do, or for us to do ART and to have their grandchildren? Is it possible? Can we hand over, like that was happened? One son of one couple died in the cancer. He had deposited his sperm. Now their parents wanted that sperm sample. They wanted to hire one surrogate and they wanted to have one more child. Let us analyze this question little further. Right to reproduction is not a fundamental right. See, the right to reproduction is not a fundamental right. Article 21, that is the right to life, that has given so many rights under that, like right to education, right to liberty, right to privacy, right to health. All these rights are included in Article 21. But I have not seen a single case where it is mentioned by the court that right to reproduction is a fundamental right. Still, suppose if it is included in Article 21, even if it is a fundamental right, because there are few believers who believe that right to reproduction is a fundamental right. Okay, even if it is a fundamental right, it is limited to the couple to have their own children. It doesn't include the couple to have their grandchildren. So we definitely cannot hand over this particular sperm to the parents. Now, what about the spouse? Let us see what about the spouse. After sperm or oocytes preservation, the person dies. Now, if he or she is married, then if the consent is given or if the will is made, then you can hand over that particular thing to the surviving partner to have her own child. So the widow can claim it. That is there in 2020 bill also, that a widow can claim it to have her own child. But it is not allowed otherwise to have it if the person has not given the consent. And it is there in 2005 guideline of ICMR also, that collection of the gamete posthumously shall be done only if prior consent of the commissioning couple is available. So this is what is there in the guideline, and it is reasonable to do so. Why so? Because it is not only which the ICMR guideline which guides this, but if person has not made the will or there is no sign done, then what is the effect? You cannot, the spouse or next of the kin can donate the organs of the dead person if they wish to, but they can't use the gamete of a dead person for donation or for self-use without prior consent, because there is a succession act which is there applicable, because the child will inherit the property. Just think of an example. Suppose this is allowed. What will happen? A couple is there. The wife is having some problem with the husband, or husband is having some problem with the wife, and the wife has given poison to the husband. He is dying. Now she wants to kill him. At the same time, she wants to inherit the property. She will take the semen, she will conceive, have child, and inherit the property of that particular person. Such act should not be allowed. And that is why the Succession Act is there. And that is why it is said that when it comes to the consent, if it is not there posthumously, for posthumous use of gamete, or before depositing the semen or oocyte at the ART clinic to give it to the spouse in case of death, we should not give it to them for use into the ART practice. We have to let them go to the court, let court decide. Now we are coming to the ethical considerations. And the ethical consideration is also important when the law is not there, the guidelines are not there. We are into a profession, and professionals are always guided by the ethics. Should we delay the treatment of the cancer just because we want to offer fertility preservation? Is it so? We have to first put the benefit which patient is going to get versus the risk imposed on that. If the benefit is more than the risk, then only we have to offer this treatment. In case of doubt, we even can take the second opinion. Should we do fertility preservation in case of cancer? Won't it pass the same defective gene? Like we have recently seen, and it was discussed in the media, the Nargis Dutt was having cancer pancreas and Sanjay Dutt is having cancer of the lung. Is it genetic predisposition? We don't know. But there is a gene which runs into the family. So by giving the same gene, are we not passing that gene to the newborn? So we have to consider that factor also. Should we do ovarian stimulation in a minor for fertility preservation when her pituitary ovarian axis is maturing? Should we do ovarian stimulation? Will that drugs and all will not put any risk onto that particular child? That also we have to consider. And should we offer experimental treatments on the name of fertility preservation? Not only fertility preservation, we should not offer the experimental treatments for anywhere into the field of medicine. There are dedicated centers where these experimental treatments are happening with the dedicated volunteers. Otherwise, we cannot offer the experimental treatments to the our patient and the name of fertility preservation. So these are the ethical considerations which also should be there in our mind always. So the important carry home message which I wanted to give is the absence of law or guideline in infertility, in the absence of law or guideline in the fertility preservation, never harm the patient. If you cannot do good, fine, but never harm. Follow the standard of the practice. Take opinion of the colleague in case of doubt. Ask somebody what he would have done. Because when the question of negligence comes, what court will do? Court will ask the next colleague what he would have done in similar situation. So you take opinion beforehand, ask your colleague. And if his opinion is also matching with yours, you are more than 99% correct in taking that decision. Think about legal implications or take legal advice on that. If you are doing something like you are giving this sample to the parents when you don't know the law or the Succession Act, it is not there in your mind, you have to take legal advice because there are other laws which are affecting this particular practice. So if you are not aware, you can take advice of any person who is knowing the law. But if you are in doubt, always take the opinion rather than playing a blind game. And document everything meticulously. This is very much important. We are very poor at documentation. You have to document everything, and you also have to mention that why you took this decision. Court, I have seen the judges, they are very much interested in proving that why you have taken this decision. If you show some logic from your papers that because of this I have taken this decision, they will definitely be happy and the decision will come in your favor because that shows professionalism when you are putting your logic for taking some action. And they are habituated with that. When they are giving judgment, they also have to give reasons why they are reaching to this particular judgment. So similarly, we have to treat them with the same ideas. We have to give logic to them, then they will be happy. And never be first or last in implementing any technology. This also you have to keep in mind. Never be first or last in implementing any new technology.